Hi there. People are still not really realizing how big the problem is that has now emerged. I saw some slides where it said how to best play this mortgage fraud debacle. It's not a debacle. It's a liquidation of a self-liquidation of the whole system. And there was a number put on it on the Dan Vatican show where they also discussed a number of things that were going on that are outrageous. But the number is $45 trillion for the real estate, which is commercial and private. That has all become unreliable as an underlying asset to the whole market, to the whole financial system. The woman there on the Dan Vatican show said that, she was paying into her mortgage, into her debt, but the payments were not administered. So she paid $20,000 and nothing happened to her debt. In fact, it increased. That's just weird behavior, but what it I think shows is that the whole system is there's a fight now, which is simply is going to be over pretty soon. But the fight is that the banks are trying to get as much as money into their bank account, so they're basically looking for whoever is willing to pay whatever they notice bills they send it for as long as possible. And when people start protesting, of course, they go belly up. But there are always a number of people that are still willing to pay into their mortgage in order to stay alive for the banking system. On the other hand, the public is, let's say, seeing all these examples of outrageous behavior and their rage is growing, and they are starting legal battle against the banks, and they are starting to win. What that signifies is, you could say it's competitive suicide, or it is assisted suicide of the financial system. The financial system has one play, which is quantitative easing and devaluing the dollar. That's like the whole story that makes sense. Obama has basically two desks. One is the fraudulent, corrupt government financial system to talk to, and with that desk he says, well, let's do quantitative easing. Let's see if we can slip out of from under this whole mess by reducing the debt, by inflating our currency, and by losing our reserve currency status. And that's definitely happening. That's the suicide. On the other hand, he has to deal with the Pentagon and the army, and I think that he shifted his primary loyalty to the army. Of course, he's the commander of it ultimately, and the way it goes is that the army came to him and said, well, the Pentagon said, well, we're not going to use nuclear weapons in response to this political system. It's too corrupt. It doesn't work anymore. We're not going to do that. So we're going to tell stories about aliens, about accidental explosions, about dysfunctioning rockets. We're not going to be reliable like that, and you have no other choice than to start being loyal to and let's say serving our interest, which is protecting the US people, making sure that they're healthy and of the right state of mind in order to have a democracy or a real country. Otherwise we won't have it. That's the whole discussion, I think, that has gone on. And Obama decided to go with the army. And with the army, of course, belongs law enforcement and justice system. So those are the two desks. And the desk of the financial system are saying, well, we're going to commit suicide now. Then you just eat it. And this is our advice. The Federal Reserve is going to print dollars. It's an idle game. It's not going to work because the justice system is now clearly on the side of the homeowners, and is simply killing, is assisting the suicide of the financial system, but in such a way that it's completely devastating. There's no solution to it. The whole financial system cannot survive. It cannot exist. And what you then get is a situation in which the US is a dependent island in the world where no other country will give anything to them or trade anything with them in return for paper, because there's no paper that US can originate that's worth anything, that has any underlying asset. And that's such a big problem for the US. So you get like incredible, let's say the OPEC and oil countries, they pull out of trading in dollars. Food supply, if it's necessary, is not. And if other countries have food, because UK had a failed crop, almost 40% less. Climate change, hello. All these things go on. Everything that the US needs, it can no longer get for paper. It can no longer get by the myth of the financial system. Then, of course, the US has a big problem. And the only one that can solve that then are the security forces. But they're not answering the financial system. They're not answering, I don't think they will be answering the politicians at all. Like the Republicans being charged of low-wage cops and security guards and soldiers. No, it's not going to happen. People have their own mind. They're not going to cooperate with that. And you can't have a police state if you don't have the fuel for it. If you don't have the energy to drive it. If you cannot drive around in big trucks with guns and ammo, and you cannot make those guns and ammo, you don't have the fuel for it, then you're not going to have that police state. So, and of course, there is the one police state that you're going to have then. Let's say at least you're not going to have a commercial police state. You can only have a functional police state, the one that serves the people, because you have to have a voluntary cooperation of people. You cannot coerce them, you don't have the money or the value to offer to do that. So then the second desk of Obama, I hope you can still follow my story, will be activated, and you will have a rise of what will be, of course, be screamed about a police state in the US. But it's actually not a police state. It's simply a state. It's just an attempt to keep together the states of the US under some type of government that is able to organize activities in the US to such an extent that there's something that the US can offer foreign countries that are now extremely reluctant to help out. And there won't be, I don't think there will be a war. The horrific thing that might occur is that the US will be asked to sacrifice a part of its one of its cities or something like that. That's not unimaginable. Just simply, you can either see a rocket fly over from China and you have a world war, or you'll have an accidental explosion of a nuclear device in a US city, which has occurred a lot, and that type of information is more in the news recently. And Obama spoke about it. He wouldn't know what would happen if a nuclear device was detonated in one of the big cities. Simply to appease an enemy that has a huge grudge against the US now, because it has completely proven a completely unreliable business partner. But playing the mortgage fraud is not an option. I think, in my opinion, I would leave the US if I could. I would, if I was in the US, or I would go to one of the dullest places that I could find in the US. So leave the big cities, because they are targets for attacks. If this fraud, there's just so many types of response you can have. But look, just like you can have a riot because somebody's trying to evict you from your house while you don't have a mortgage, and the whole street might cooperate together and just kick that mortgage, that guy that comes to your door, out of the street. You don't know how foreign countries are going to respond to the disappearance of a financial system that they have relied on. So there might be lots of aggression, and on every level. I really am quite convinced of that. You can't really take Wall Street serious anymore. You can't take the US serious anymore. If you're a serious company, if you have big factories and you're moving around lots of stuff, no way. Get the hell out of there. The new hub will be Singapore or something like that. So those are my thoughts for today. Buy gold and silver. It's still very cheap if you can get a hold on it. and move to the countryside. That's what I'd say. Thanks for listening.